Going on in this city, and we are going to talk about it today. We're broadcasting live, of course, on the AM FM dial, KSHP, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, and the Occupy Democrats Network. And I ask that you subscribe and click on that subscribe button on the Occupy Democrats Network. It's only a cup of coffee, $5 a month. You're going to get exclusive content from me, personal chat with me, really anytime on social media. So please do that. And we got a big show lined up for you today. I think it's fair to characterize this guy as a right-wing reporter. His name is Julio Rosas. You probably saw him on Fox News multiple times. He was on the Tucker Carlson show when he was on Fox News. We're going to get into a good spirited debate about this immigration bill, which I think is an absolute joke, considering that you have this very far-right GOP member, James Lankford, who was praised by Donald Trump for being tough on the border. He helps put this deal together, and now Republicans are rejecting it. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. It's ridiculous. We're going to get to that here in just a couple minutes. Before we do that, Joe Biden was in town yesterday in Las Vegas, and guess who was also in town? Robert Kennedy Jr. I had a chance to speak with him. There were a lot of crazies that were at this rally, I'll be honest with you. But after Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s rally, I had a chance to catch up with him, and I asked him a few questions. And I asked Robert F. Kennedy Jr. if he thinks Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. Have a listen to his answer.
I would increase housing stock, and we have a number of ways of doing that, but that needs to be done immediately.
Do you believe Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy?
I think Donald Trump may have ambitions to be to increase dramatically the power of the executive and to dismantle some of the checks and balances that guarantee our liberty in our country. I'm not scared that he's able to do that. Last time he was in office, he promised to do a bunch of things like that he didn't end up doing. And I think our democracy is very resilient. We do have checks and balances. We have a Congress, we have a military, we have many government agencies that would push back against attempts to start a dictatorship in this country. So I still think we have enough of American democracy and a resilient system that is resilient against any individual president who tries to assume dictatorial power.
All right, so he kind of bounces around that answer. Do I think Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy? Of course I do, 150%. He said that, quote, Trump has ambition to increase power. I think that's very light, the way he's answering that question, because he doesn't want to offend the MAGAs out there. Because let's be honest, the overwhelming majority of people at this stage of the game that support Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are people that are on the far right. And then I ask him this question. I ask him who he wants to support, Trump or Biden, and I almost knew that he was going to give me this kind of answer, but I think it's a very important question. I want to know what side Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is on. Have a listen to this. You're in this to win it, but I think this is an important question. If you had to choose, if you had to tomorrow, between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, if you had to, who would you choose? Can you answer that, and why?
I cannot answer that. No, I don't have a plan B. I intend to win the election.
If you would not win it with Trump or Biden, would you serve in either administration?
I don't know.
Hey, Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, he doesn't know. He doesn't know. That's not an answer. He said he can't answer. Well, why not, Mr. Kennedy? Why not? I want to know, if push came to shove, Mr. Kennedy, would you support someone who is a wannabe dictator who's facing 91 felonies and a liable rapist? Or would you support somebody that you don't always agree with all the time? You think he might be too old. But who would you vote for? Who would you support? The guy won't even answer the question. That's no backbone. And I'm going to tell you something. I was at this rally yesterday, and I saw somebody with a shirt on that said all the vaccines are poisonous. Somebody with a shirt on that said, don't target our children, with a picture of the Target emblem. These are Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s supporters. They are conspiracy theorists when it comes to COVID. They are conspiracy theorists when it comes to the elections. They are conspiracy theorists when it comes to January 6th. If you're a conspiracy theorist, you're either going to vote for one of two people, Donald Trump or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. It's as simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. takes votes away from Donald Trump, then I'm all for it. Let's be honest. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has no chance to be the next president of the United States. No chance. It's not going to happen. So he's not taking Biden voters away. If he is, it's a very small percentage. The overwhelming majority of the voters that would vote for Donald Trump, the overwhelming majority of those who support Robert F. Kennedy Jr. are Donald Trump supporters. They would vote for Donald Trump. So if he takes votes away from Donald Trump, I am all in, and I am all for that 150%. It's not going to help Donald Trump. There's a reason, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't believe me. Why is it you think that the Steve Bannons of the world and the far-right radicals of the world like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? I think there's a clear and cut answer to that. All right, without further ado, certainly the biggest news story of the day, the biggest news story of the weekend is this new immigration bill, and we're learning a lot more about it. And I figured what better person to talk about it. Haven't had him on the show in a long time. He's a good reporter. Field reporter Julio Rosas joining us right now on the line. You've seen him on Tucker Carlson's show in the past. He's made plenty of cable news appearances, and now we're happy to have Julio on our show on Pushing the Limits. Julio, thank you so much for joining us, my friend. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm still kicking, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that. All right, Julio. Any surprise at all when you read this bill, when you looked at some of the details that are in this bill, that Republicans, at least some of them, will not support it? Why do you think that is? Is that a surprise to you at all?
No, it's not a surprise, and it's actually a good thing that they don't support this bill, because the whole purpose of it being advertised is that this is going to finally solve the border crisis that the Biden administration started, but that's not what it does at all. And it's there's so many things wrong with it that it could take up the whole time, but it doesn't end catch and release. It gives lots more money to the NGOs that are facilitating all of this. It for some reason is throwing any legal challenges solely in the hands of the U.S. District Court in D.C. So I mean, there's just so many things that again, the border crisis wasn't created by an act of Congress. At least the acuteness of it, of what we're seeing. This was all started at the executive branch when Joe Biden entered office in 2021.
So you don't think we had any type of border crisis before 2020? You think it only happened and we didn't have any issues until the Biden? I'm just trying to understand your opinion until the Biden took office.
Not to this level. When you look at just the numbers, and as I've been to the border on and off pretty consistently for the past couple of years. I've been covering the border since 2019, so I've seen firsthand how the dynamics have shifted. And so, no, I'm not saying the border was perfect under any previous administration,
Gotcha.
But there's a direct link between what the Biden administration took day one and subsequent days and what has been created as a result of those policies.
It certainly hasn't gotten better. I don't disagree with you there, but I guess this is my another question for you is that we have this Republican Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma. He was praised by Trump and the GOP, if you recall, for being very tough on the border. But now, he with presenting solutions. I know you don't agree with all the solutions in the bill. I get that. MAGA is attacking him and says the deal is led part of a Democratic agenda when this guy Lankford helped put it together. I mean, what do you say to that?
Well, I mean, that's true, because it is basically codifying into law that it is acceptable to have up to 5,000 illegal entries per day.
Yeah, but hasn't that been debunked? Hasn't that been debunked based on the bill? That's what Scalise said, and that's been debunked. Or not would not allow 5,000.
You got to read the text of the bill, Brian, and I've seen it, and you just got to look at it, and it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just that. Like I said, there's so. What it boils down to is that it's a classic DC approach to solving any problem. It spends money that we don't have. It gives more powers to the federal government that it doesn't need, all without actually solving the actual problem.
Wouldn't you say, though, that while it's not perfect, and I would agree it's not perfect, I do believe it would help. And I understand that there are people out there, they don't want aid to Ukraine, no more aid to Ukraine, and even some people out there that don't want aid to Israel. But I personally believe, and you can tell me where you think I'm wrong, that this would help. And this is addressing the issue. And while it's not perfect and no bill isn't it, Julio, isn't it better than nothing?
No, what would be better would be for President Biden to undo the executive orders that he signed on day one, because under the Trump administration, and I know this is going to make people mad, But the border situation was trending in the right direction. Every time I've gone down to the border and I've talked and interacted with people who live and work down there, they have always said things were better under the Trump administration. They were at a minimum trending in the right direction, and has done a complete 180 since then. And so, this, like I said at the very beginning, this does not require an act of Congress to solve. The broader scope and the broader issue of immigration and as a whole, yes, Congress does play a role in that. But to stem the current flow of illegal immigration that we've seen that has reached historic highs, unseen before in modern history, it just requires Biden to undo what he did.
I think you and I both know that's not going to happen. And there's, in politics, obviously there's always going to be compromise, whether we agree or disagree. That's just not going to happen. You and I both know Joe Biden's not going to do that. I think that, you mentioned the term step in the right direction. I personally believe this is a step in the right direction. But I guess this bill would allow migrants who come to the border through lawful ports of entry and families to enter the U.S. under federal supervision for 90 days. I looked at some other things in this bill that I actually think would help. I don't think it's perfect. I don't think any bill is perfect. But, I mean, what do you make of the fact, and I wanted to ask you this, Julio, that Donald Trump apparently has told House Republicans that, unless it's perfect, we're not going to pass this bill. He's also said on the record that he wants the economy to implode. I just don't think that's make America first. And I don't think that's, let's help each other first. I think that's Donald Trump thinking about himself. Do you think there's any validity to that? Because Republicans have said on the record, yeah, Trump does not want this bill to pass. He says it has to be perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect bill.
Oh, sure. There's no such thing as a perfect bill, but this is an atrocious bill. I mean, this bill, like I said, it does not actually address the problems. It gives the government more power. It spends way more money, and like even outside of the everything with Ukraine and Israel, I think it's absurd that we're going to spend $6 billion on Ukraine when we're going to maybe do 20 billion, and a lot of that is actually going to exacerbate the current problem. So I just think that it's wrong and it's completely nonsensical to all of a sudden say, well, Republicans are the ones that don't want to actually solve it because they want to give Donald Trump a win. Because it's all coming from people who have been denying that there's even been a crisis. The Biden administration is just now using that word when they've been saying, oh, it's been a challenge, it's a problem, while blaming the other guy. And now all of a sudden that they're saying, well, actually there is a crisis and Republicans don't want to solve it. It's nonsensical. I just came back from San Diego just yesterday, seeing firsthand the problems that are happening over there because of this. Again, migration is a big problem. And it didn't start with Joe Biden, but as with a lot of other things under the Biden administration, he's made the problem 10 times worse through his direct actions.
I understand what you're saying, but on the other side of things, when Donald Trump says he wants the economy to implode, which is unbelievably ridiculous that he would even make that statement, and when he tells Republicans, and Mitt Romney, you might not be a fan of Mitt Romney, but Mitt Romney has been a staunch Republican his whole life. I know some MAGA Republicans want to call him a rhino because he voted to impeach Donald Trump. But Mitt Romney has always said that we've had a crisis at the border. He's always said that. And he's been one of the most outspoken critics in saying, yeah, here's what Trump said. You heard the sound bites, Julio. Trump doesn't want us to solve the problem. He wants to wait until he gets in office. To me, that's the opposite of make America great again or America first. And if Republicans really want to fix this issue, and I do think some Republicans do, then why not go back to the table? Why wouldn't Mike Johnson say, hey, we want to get back to the bargaining table. We want to work with Joe Biden again. There's things in there that we need to change. But all I hear from Mike Johnson is, no, we're not even, once it hits my desk, forget about it. I mean, if they really want to fix the problem, get back to the bargaining table. That's what I want to see.
But they passed HR 2 last year, and Chuck Schumer hasn't taken it up in the Senate. And the whole reason why, as I was saying, doesn't take an act of Congress, the reason why that bill is actually good, because the purpose is to curtail what the executive branch is doing. So, again, it's nonsensical to think that Republicans are just not budging on the issue. They've actually given steps and proposals that would actually solve the acuteness of the historic flow of illegal immigration. This bill is just completely filled with nonsense. It's attached to way more spending that focuses on other things. And at the end of the day, you're right, Biden is not going to undo his executive orders, but I think that just highlights how unserious that the Democratic Party is in actually solving this problem that they created.
Were Republicans and Donald Trump, were they all wrong when they said James Langford was from the GOP is very tough on the border? Because Langford, again, is one of the people who put this bill together with the Democrats.
Well, he's clearly shown that he's not serious. The fact that he's willing, I mean, you could say that, and what I would just say is that Congress is not the main cause of the current crisis. That's what it is, and the fact that are people buying into this narrative that they are just shows that, one, how just horrible the media is at actually reporting the truth, but also just how, I'm going to say it, how gullible people are with certain propaganda.
Well, I mean, we can certainly have a separate conversation on that about the media. I mean, there are still people in the media that say that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. You know, you were on Tucker Carlson's show. There are people in the media that want Russia to win. Tucker Carlson wants Russia to win in the Ukraine. I don't mind him doing an interview with Vladimir Putin. I think there are a lot of members of the media, not all on the right. There are some on the left too. But if you're going to talk about propaganda, it's the reason why Fox News, and you have appeared on Fox News a number of times, had to pay over $800 million lying about the election, lying about these voting machines. So I think and that's fine if that's your opinion, but I think I would hope that we would agree that a lot of it is coming from the right as well. Donald Trump, to this day, still says he won the 2020 election. Is that propaganda?
Well, for one, I thought we were talking about the border, but if we want to talk about the election, that's a whole other thing. But,
no, but Julio, the reason why I brought that up is because you're making the claim, and you're entitled to your opinion. That's why I wanted you on the show. I appreciate that. But you're making the claim that, you know, people are buying into the propaganda on the left when it comes to immigration and this bill. I would respectfully disagree with you to an extent. But I think a lot of that propaganda comes from the right, the front runner of the Republican Party. He's obviously going to be running against Joe Biden, still says the election was stolen, and he's not held to account by almost any right-wing entity. Donald Trump did not win the 2020 election. You're going to see propaganda on the left. I understand what you're saying, but I think the overwhelming amount of propaganda is coming from the right.
Look, I mean, we can definitely talk about the election, and me personally, you know, I think there was certain shenanigans involved in it. I mean, that's what happens when you expand, when you allow, you know, voting to go on for weeks on end. I mean, the fact that other countries are able to do accurate ballot totals within a day, and we can't, as a nation, get it done within a week.
Julio,
of course, hold on. Of course, you're going to have people question whether or not the results are fair and square. Now, going back to the border, at the end of the day, I don't know how many times I have to repeat this. At the end of the day, this bill is not good. It is going to codify the existing problems into law. It's going to hamstring any future administration to actually address it. You know, should there be a change in the executive branch? And that's exactly what they want. They want to not, you want to talk about not actually addressing it. This bill would not address it, and it's going to prevent anybody in the future from actually taking concrete steps that have already been proven. I mean, we know what works. Illegal immigration was trending in the downward direction. And towards the end of the Trump administration, we saw a complete reversal of that, and we saw the numbers explode. And that's why we've seen people not just coming from Central America and Mexico. We're having people from all over the world. I've met people from Uzbekistan, China, and Russia. So this isn't like, oh, we don't want brown people to get into the country. No, there's plenty of white people illegally entering the country too. I've seen it firsthand. So this idea that this bill is the end all be all, and if Republicans don't want to take it, then they're not serious. That's just completely nonsensical.
Well, you might disagree with me, but I believe if Donald Trump called Mike Johnson today and said, hey, you know what? This is going to be bad for the country. It's going to make Biden look bad. Go ahead and sign the bill. Guess what? The MAGA Republicans would sign the bill. There's a reason why Donald Trump doesn't want this bill to be signed. And in my opinion, it's not because he cares about you and me. It's not because he cares about the border. It's because he only cares about himself. And he made sure that the far-right Republicans like the Mike Johnsons and the Scalises of the world don't pass this bill because he doesn't want Joe Biden to look good. He's basically said that himself. Going back to what you said about the elections, there's a fine line between questioning an election and saying there are some shenanigans, which is, by the way, shenanigans doesn't mean that the election was stolen and that the Democrats cheated and there's widespread voter fraud. And you know that, Julio. I know you're a smart guy. You know that. Shenanigans are very different than saying Joe Biden cheated and I won the election in a landslide. That's exactly what Donald Trump has done. And 6 out of 10 Republicans, 6 out of 10, 60% of every Republican in this country thinks that Donald Trump won the election. If you want to talk about clear and present propaganda, 60% of Republicans, Julio, where is that coming from? It's coming from Donald Trump, who continues to lie about the 2020 election. He lies. He did not win. And it comes from right-wing media. If you could find me a poll where 60% of Democrats in this country believe in something that didn't happen, then I'm all ears. If you could find me a poll from MSNBC or CNN that's propaganda.
I will point to that a lot of Democrats after the 2016 election believe that Donald Trump won because Russia directly interfered in the 2016 election. There are actually polls about that. So I mean, you want to talk about that? We're more than happy to. But look, my issue, my thing is that if we want to have safe and secure elections, let's have voter ID laws. I'm more than happy to show my ID.
Then why
a lot of people.
Then why didn't I hear Republicans say that after Donald Trump won in 2016? Is it only fair when a Republican wins? Why is it when a Republican?
I'm pretty sure that any Republican, regardless of the outcome, would want to have voter ID. It's the Democrats who think that for some reason minorities have a hard time obtaining a photo ID of any kind. Which is, if
well,
you've
listen,
seen,
I don't disagree. Believe it or not, we agree on that, Julio. I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. But here's where I do have a problem. And listen, you're not the only person that says this. Comparing 2016 and Hillary Clinton, who, by the way, conceded the following day, to what Donald Trump has done with the January 6th insurrection, for starters, it's non-comparable. Can you find some Democrats out there that are absolutely wrong, that say that, Donald Trump didn't win? By the way, there was Russian interference.
Actually, yes. Yeah. So, I mean, taking Hillary Clinton, yes, she conceded the next day, but what has she done in the year since then? She has repeatedly said, she's almost done a complete reversal. She said, well, actually, it is Russia's fault that I lost. And it's actually not, she definitely, at a bare minimum, approaches the line of saying that the election was stolen from me. She has not outright said that.
I have never heard her make that statement. She has said that Donald Trump is an illegitimate president, not because of what took place in the elections in 2016, for a lot of other reasons, and I would agree with her. But first of all, I mean, let's be honest here, Julio. We didn't have an insurrection after the 2016 elections. Hillary Clinton conceded. That's just the bottom line.
Yes, there was an insurrection, if you want to call it. I call it riots, but there was riots at Donald Trump's inauguration, and one of the reasons why we saw widespread riots in 2020, and Brian, that's how you and I got to know each other, was in fact that people saw Donald Trump as an illegitimate, not the rightful president.
Are you talking about the Black Lives Matter protests?
That was one of the things that invigorated people to really get out there. Yes, Brian, I was out there. The reason why things got as crazy as they did was because of three things: because of COVID, and people were tired of being cooped up at home. They lost jobs. They wanted an outlet. That's how they did it. The fact that the election at that time had Donald Trump as the incumbent president, and he was going to be going up against Joe Biden. And then the spark for all that was what happened to George Floyd. Those were the three things that got people and got as crazy as it did because, and I'll show you an example, there have been controversial police actions in the aftermath of the Derek Chauvin trial, but we never saw a reaction to the level that we saw in 2020. So there has to be certain conditions that are met. And I know we're getting a little bit kind of in the weeds about it, but being out there in the streets, because people were like, we need to, F12, F the cops, and F Donald Trump. That was a common thing. And to deny that is just, I don't know, you can do that, but you'd be wrong.
I mean, I didn't hear anybody chanting out, hang the vice president. I didn't see anybody going to the Capitol trying to overturn the outcome of an election.
No, they tried to storm the White House in, what was it, late May, early June. They tried to storm the White House, and there have been more far left people in the years. I mean, I was just at the pro-Gaza rally that was in Washington, D.C. back in January, and they once again attacked the White House perimeter, and yet there was no outrage about how that's not, there's no outrage from the city saying that there was an insurrection there. For me personally, and I covered January 6th, I was there in person, I consider that a riot. I'm not trying to downplay what happened there, but there's a lot of people on your side, Brian, that are outraged about January 6th, but have nothing to say about any of the other smaller insurrections, so to speak, that happened in D.C. and across the country that year.
I respectfully disagree with you. By the way, I'm a registered independent. I voted for 8 Republicans in 2022. I absolutely lean to the left when it comes to social issues. But with that being said, I didn't vote for Hillary and I didn't vote for Barack Obama. But with that being said, I don't know if I have a side. I have a side of I don't like violence, and I talk about it on this show every day. Now, even though I don't think Black Lives Matter protests had anything to do with the elections, I disagree with you on that. That doesn't mean I condone violence, lighting things on fire, attacking police officers. I've been pretty consistent on that. It shouldn't matter whether it's a Black Lives Matter protest, but the overwhelming of tens of millions of people that were protesting were not violent people. They were there for equality. I didn't hear them talking about the elections. That's just my personal opinion. But I do think there's a lot of propaganda to go around. And I don't hear Hillary Clinton doing interviews today saying that the election was stolen and the Republicans cheated. The front runner of and by the way, Hillary's not running for office right now. Donald Trump is the front runner of the Republican Party who continues to lie. Would you denounce that type of language? Would you denounce Donald Trump today, who is the front runner of the Republican Party, Julio, that says he won the 2020 election in a landslide and that Joe Biden, the Democrats, cheated? Are you willing to denounce that and say that's not true and it's a lie?
I'm willing to say that there needs to be a lot more investigations into what happened in the 2020 election. It was a crazy year.
So you're not willing to say that Joe Biden is as a journalist, and I respect you for coming on, but as a journalist, you're not willing to say right now that Joe Biden is a free and fair elected president and he was duly elected and that was and Donald Trump did not win. You're not willing to say that?
No, Joe Biden is certainly the president of the United States.
I didn't
that's
ask
why
you if
he's
he
in
was
the White House.
president.
And that's why we have the border crisis, because as I've been saying, this is all stemming from the executive branch.
But that's not what I asked you. I didn't ask you if he was president. We all know he's president. That wasn't my question. My question was, are you not willing to admit that Joe Biden is a free and fair elected president while there is absolutely no evidence of widespread voter fraud? And you know that as a journalist, you're not willing to say on this show right now that Joe Biden is a free and fair. It doesn't mean that there can't be changes made and we can make improvements. I have no problem with that. But you're not willing to.
We probably should do that.
I have no problem with that, but you're not willing to admit that he's a free and fair elected president? I'm shocked.
He's the elected president of the United States.
But that's not what I asked you. You're not answering.
I'm repeating what you're saying.
Is he a free,
I'm saying
is he a free and fair elected president? That's all I'm asking.
He's the elected president of the United States.
You're not willing to answer that question. All right. I mean, hey, listen.
I'm saying he's the elected president of the United States. I don't know how else you want me to say that.
Is he a free and fair elected president of the United States? It's a very easy question to answer, Julio. Very easy.
And I'm answering. He's the elected president of the United States.
But you're not willing to say free and fair. And there's where we lie with the propaganda, all due respect, on the right. You're a journalist, and I appreciate you coming on the show, but you're not willing to admit the obvious, which is a fact. He is a free and fair elected president. You're not even willing to answer the most basic of questions, Julio. If you want to talk about issues that took place in the elections, let's have that conversation. No problem. If you want to talk about the border crisis and you want to blame Joe Biden for all of it, fine. I'm fair conversation to have. Let's have it, even though we might disagree. But this is where we separate the earth is flat from the earth is round, and you're not willing to say. You're willing to say he's the president, but that's not the question. You know what the question is. Is he a free and fair elected president? And the reason why I ask that is because there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud that could have changed the outcome of the election. How can we talk about the election, and how can you, with all due respect, be a journalist when you can't say he's a free and fair elected president? I'm mesmerized by that because I know you're a smart guy. I know you do your due diligence. I know you work hard and you go to all these, whether it's going to the border or you were there at January 6th. I respect that you go out there and do these things. I know that you know he's a free and fair elected president, and I'm just amazed that you're not willing to admit that. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but
I'm just amazed that we're still having this conversation more than 4 years later. And the reason why I say that, and the reason why I say that is because I have to go back to my initial point that you are not going to have confidence in elections when you make it easy for things to happen. And like I said, a lot of it can be solved if we just have same day voting, voter ID. A lot of the concerns would go away right away. I mean, just those two things alone. But I don't know how else you want me to say it, but he is the elected president of the United States.
Well, I just want you to speak a fact. He won a free and fair election. You're not willing to say that. You're willing to say he's the president, which he is. But you're not willing to admit that he was a free and fair elected president, meaning that nobody cheated to help get him into the White House. He won fair and square. You're not willing to make that statement. And I find that very concerning. That's what I'm trying to say here. I mean, we can have reasonable conversations about, hey, voter ID and things could be the same. But the bottom line here, Julio, and you know this, in 2016, before the elections, Donald Trump was saying the election was going to be rigged, Hillary was going to cheat, and the Democrats were going to cheat and steal the election. Then something happened. Donald Trump won a free and fair election. He won in 2016. And then for the next 3 years, I didn't hear any Republicans out there talking about election integrity or how, maybe the Republicans cheated and it wasn't a legitimate election. But the time when Donald Trump.
Those were coming from the Democrats. You and I, Brian, I entered my career. I entered my career into journalism right at that time. I'm well aware of how the Democrats reacted to how they lost the 2016 election. No, it absolutely is, because this stems from the fact that Democrats, when they don't get their way, they accuse the other side of cheating as well. So the fact that you're trying to make it seem like it's only Republicans who are only doing this, it's just ahistorical. Again, Hillary Clinton herself and on down, and the whole reason why, look at Facebook. The whole reason why Facebook had to change its whole news and how it prioritized that on people's timelines was because the left was screaming its heads off, like, oh, well, memes somehow influenced the 2016 election. And so what did Facebook do? They deprioritize news feeds and they prioritize family and friends. Just on that simple fact alone,
I don't
is reaction to how the left reacted to the 2016 election.
I don't think Russians' interference changed the outcome of the 2016 election. With that being said, the CIA and the FBI proved that Russia did interfere in the election. Did it change the election results? No, I don't think so. And again, I go back to what I said earlier. Hillary Clinton conceded, something that Donald Trump will never do, and he will take that to his grave. Therefore, I say it's a false analogy. Could you find some radical idiots out there on the left that might say that Hillary won and Donald Trump cheated? I guess. Guess what? I'm willing to say that they're wrong, and I'm willing to say something that you're not willing to say on this show. Guess what? Donald Trump in 2016 was not only the president. I'll take it a step further and speak truth. He won a free and fair election. The Republicans did not cheat. It did not change that. You're not willing to say the same in 2020. You're not willing to come on this show and say Joe Biden won a free and fair election. I'm sorry, Julio, with all due respect, that's absurd.
That's certainly your opinion, but the network that we're currently on, I see the Occupy Democrats network. They're definitely one of the big pushers for that idea that you're saying that you don't agree with. And props to you, Brian. Really, I have a lot of respect for you, and that's why I'm willing to come on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But again, having been on the ground at all these different things over the year, not just starting in 2020, but starting in 2017 and onward. Mm-hmm. There is a big problem within the Democratic Party who view Trump. Obviously, he's not in anymore, but at the time they viewed him as an illegitimate president because not that the election was stolen from within, but they thought that the election was stolen from a foreign adversary. And
well, if you could give me a statistic that 60% of Democrats think the 2016 election was stolen, which, by the way, there's no statistic that would say that. Republicans today, 60% of them, and they're obviously clueless, think that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. That is pure propaganda, and it's not true. And I think when someone is not willing to admit, like I just admitted, which is easy for me because I'm admitting a fact, Donald Trump won a free and fair election in 2016. If a Democrat came up to me today and said, Brian, you're wrong, Hillary won in 2016, you know what I would call them? I would call them a moron, because it's not true. It's like saying the earth is flat, and it's not true. It's not true. Donald Trump did not win in 2020. He's the leader of the Republican Party, or else I'll put it your side. The leader of your party on your side is facing 91 felony counts. He is a liable sexual abuser, and he is the face of your party. And he continues to lie about the 2020 election. We can have policy disagreements, and I love having those policy disagreements. But the bottom line is the front runner of your party is probably going to be a convicted felon. And I find that extremely problematic. And I know Republicans want to talk about Hunter Biden's penis, and they want to talk about his laptop, a private citizen. But yet the same people don't want to talk about, the fact that Jared Kushner received $2.1 billion from the Saudis.
How many private citizens are able to crash at their dad's place? And by their dad's place, I mean the White House.
What do you mean? I'm confused with that question. What do you mean?
It's just you're trying to downplay the whole Hunter Biden saga by saying, well, he's a private citizen, but we both know he's a little bit more than that. We're not talking about a president's child that's only a couple years old. This is an adult man who I mean, if we want to talk about Hunter Biden, that's a whole other thing. But my point is that the idea that this whole election denialism, or whatever you want to call it, is only coming from Republicans and has never once been an issue before within the Democratic Party. I'm not even talking about way back in the 1800s. I'm just saying that there's probably a lot of people who are listening right now that probably do believe in that. But the idea is, and that's did I say that you said that?
Understood. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
At the end of the day, to go back to the whole reason why I'm here is
Sure.
that this Senate bill is not the end all be all. There are plenty of other solutions that work to address and slow the high
Mhm.
volume of people that are illegally crossing. And so the idea that people are pushing now from the left and from the media, maybe not you, that it's like this is all going to be Republicans' fault if they don't pass this one and only bill,
No.
is just simply false.
Yeah. And listen, I've said this before and I'll say it again. And maybe I haven't said this with you. I don't believe the border crisis. And yes, I do believe it's a crisis. I've always said it is. I said it way before Joe Biden got into office. This is, in my opinion, not a Republican problem, and it's not a Democrat problem. This is an American problem. I remember the George W. Bush years. It was a huge problem back then. And we can say, well, wait, there's so many more people crossing the border illegally now than there was under the Trump administration. We can point fingers, but the bottom line is that this has been a crisis for decades and decades and decades. And we're not going to get
but not at this level and not at this acuteness. The fact that it's over 100,000 a month at a minimum, and just in December we had 300,000. I mean, that should tell you something, Brian, that like, hey, maybe that, the guy that's in charge, that the guy that you're saying is the free and duly elected president of the United States, maybe he doesn't really know how to actually do this. And the fact is he does know what he's doing. This is all very purposeful. Like I said, he didn't undo those executive orders from the Trump administration just by accident. That he made it a point to do that day one of his.
Well, then answer me this: if you don't like some of the things in the bill, that's one thing. But when Joe Biden months back asked for $13 billion to put more security border agents at the border, which would clearly help, why do Republicans vote against that? Why? That would immediately help the issue. It's a start. You're not going to get everything you want.
The issue is not Border Patrol agents. Yes, I mean, in general, yes. Could more Border Patrol agents help? Yes, but what would they be doing, Brian? What would they be doing? The reason why he wants more Border Patrol agents is so that they can fast track the processing of catch and release. That's all it is. So whenever, and trust me, I've asked Border Patrol agents, do you need more agents? They said, yeah, that could help. But what we really need and what we really want is a change in policy that gets us back out in the field. We're not babysitting people, and we're actually do our jobs and apprehend people who are trying to legally cross, not those who just simply want to give themselves up. So more Border Patrol agents that's not the main thing. The main thing is a change in the executive policy and how they view immigration law.
I understand that that's your opinion, but I've talked to border agents.
Well, I mean that's a fact.
Well, I mean, listen, we can go back to what I talked about when it came to facts earlier, but when it comes to this issue, I understand that a lot more border agents won't fix everything. I would never claim that it did. The only point that I'm trying to make is $14 billion to put more agents at the border. And I've talked to agents who've even called into this show that said, yes, it would help. Would it help everything? No. But the point is, at least it would be a start, and it's not going to give you everything you want. And Republicans voted against it. That's my frustration. Let's start somewhere, and then let's work from there. More Border Patrol agents, $14 trillion, assets to help at the border is a start. It's not perfect. We got a lot more work to do. I agree with you. But the fact that Republicans voted against that leads me to believe that some of these Republicans, not all, but some of these Republicans are not serious about fixing the border problem, even though they claim they are. And a lot of them will listen to everything Donald Trump said. And again, I will leave you with this. If Donald Trump called Mike Johnson a few days ago or today and said, you know what, I changed my mind, I think we want to go with this border bill. Guess what would happen, Julio? You know this. The Republicans would pass the bill because Mike Johnson and the MAGA Republicans and Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan, they will do everything and anything that Donald Trump wants them to do. And that's not how you fix problems.
Again, I have to say that one, HR2, which is what I mentioned earlier, HR2 does have more funding for Border Patrol agents. But the reason why the Senate is not taking that up, because it would actually solve a lot, again, not all, but it would solve a lot of the problems that are that have been created by the Biden administration. So the answer is not, like I said, it's not necessarily more Border Patrol agents, because all they would be doing, because all those extra agents would be doing, would just be sitting, processing, and releasing people back into the country that probably shouldn't be here, like that al-Shabaab terrorist that ICE had to capture after they're in the country for a year. I think the fact that that's not raising more alarm bells within people is very concerning. So
well, let's try to end where we both will agree, and I think we will both agree on this. The border is a crisis. I think you would agree with me. We want Republicans and Democrats to work together that truly want to fix this problem. I think there are too many people in Washington, D.C. that maybe don't want to fix the problem, that use this as politics and scoring political points. I want them to be able to sit at the table. They're not going to agree on everything. Stop listening to Donald Trump, which will probably never happen so long as Donald Trump is alive. Stop listening to people that are not in office. Sit at the table, actual lawmakers, not noisemakers. Okay. I don't want Tlaib at the table any more than I want Marjorie Taylor Greene at the table. I want serious politicians to sit at the table and try to get something done. And I think we can probably agree on that.
I certainly want this border crisis fixed. Yes.
Yes. Well, Julio, I always appreciate it when you come on this show. Good spirited debate as always. And you're welcome back anytime. And that's why I wanted you on. I know we're not going to agree on a lot of things, but I think we need to have more of these kinds of discussions like this one. And, when it comes to the end of the day, I still think we have a lot of common ground. We agree that there's a border crisis. We agree that something needs to be done about it. We agree that we want people to come into this country legally, but we also want people that are in this country illegally to be treated as human beings. I think we could all agree on that as well. We don't want bad elements coming into this country, and we want bad elements that are already in this country, legal or not, to be taken care of. And we want our justice system to work. So before I let you go, Julio, how do people follow your stuff? How do people follow you on social media and follow your reporting? Because I do appreciate the fact that you're an extremely hard worker. You go to all these places, you interview people, and you're there. And I do appreciate that about you a lot.
Well, if people want to subscribe to my Substack, they can go to mostlypeaceful.live. That's my new endeavor, to be on the ground, mainly focusing on protests and the border. Like I said, I just came back. But thank you for having me on, Brian. It's always fun.
Julio, always appreciate you, my man. We hope to have you on again, and you have a good week. Okay, who are you picking for the Super Bowl? I got to ask you that before we let you go.
I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go with not Taylor Swift. only, only because she cannot become a fan day one, and her team automatically goes to the Super Bowl. It doesn't work that way. She has to go through a few pains first.
Julio, as long as you don't take the Jesse Waters approach and say that she's a Pentagon asset, then I'll respect your opinion.
Well, no, not nothing like that. But anything she has to look. I grew up in Chicago, right? So I had the Chicago Bears. So she has to go through my pain before she can reach the new highs.
If she dates a Chicago Bears player, then I think you'll be more on her side, right? I think
Probably,
that would be
yes.
Okay. Yeah. Julio, I appreciate the time, my friend. Thank you for taking the opportunity. We'll talk soon, okay, buddy? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, good spirited debate. I knew we would have that. Julio Rosas, ladies and gentlemen. All right, here's what we're going to do. Reaction. Good spirited debate there. I think the most troubling part of that interview, he's not willing to admit that Joe Biden is a free and fair elected president. That's troubling. But I'm going to open up the phone lines. What do you think? We're going to take a 90-second break. And when we come back, your reaction, I'm going to take your calls on that interview with Julio Rosas, who's made plenty of appearances on Tucker Carlson's show. Julio's done my show before. Hopefully he'll do it again. Respectful debate, good debate. Number to call, 702-221-7283. That number if you'd like to be part of the conversation. Thoughts on that debate consideration. Now is your time to call. 702-221-SAVE. Brian, you don't open up the phone line. 702-221-7283. We'll take your phone calls on the other side. You're listening to Push the Limits right there on KSHP.
Are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is the knockout. We're looking at 467, just off the road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super hero, that is, because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. Boy, not like there's nothing going on in Vegas, right? Yesterday, the president was in town, Joe Biden, the free and fair elected president, by the way. Julio was not willing to admit that, which I find extremely troubling. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was in town yesterday. I had a couple questions I asked him yesterday. I played that first segment. We got the Super Bowl in town. We got Live Golf in town. Wow, there's so much going on in Vegas. But we're taking your phone calls now because I want to get reaction to this bill that apparently is not going to be passed because of Republicans. That's just a fact. We thought of that interview I just did with Julio Rosas. I always appreciate it when it comes on. 702-221-7283. Phone lines are jam-packed right now, so if you're busy, keep trying. Let's go to Kiva. First up on question limit. Kiva.
So, how are you doing today?
Hi, good Kiva. What's on your phone?
So, I was listening in on the last person who you had on the line, and I'm going to admit myself, and I truly don't appreciate the way Republicans constantly cry and complain about us. And I understand that they're frustrated, fine, but when they constantly call us illegal, this all this other crap, it's like, how would they like if we called them trash cans instead of Republicans? They would speak out immediately.
Okay, so I agree where you're coming from. Here's the most troubling part about this, and I'm going to be honest. Julio is not a stupid person. He is a capable person. I find him to be well spoken, and I think he's an educated guy. The problem is you have people like Julio, with all due respect, who want to talk about facts and lies. I want to ask you the basic of questions, which is Joe Biden a free and fair elected president? Republicans will answer, who's the president? No, that wasn't the question, Julio. The question was, is he a free and fair elected president? Which obviously he is. If somebody is not willing to admit that, then I can't take them seriously. I mean, that's my issue. Let's talk about the border crisis. Let's talk about issues we have at the border. Let's talk about policies we may not like. Let's have that debate. But if you can't admit that the earth is round and that Joe Biden won a free and fair election in 2020, then where can we go from there? That's my problem.
Right. And the thing for me is, not all of us immigrants are bad people. Like, a lot of the people on the right, they like to say, oh, well, there's these monsters, there's this, there's that. It's like, that's not true at all. You have no evidence. You have no case on that.
And the analogy that somehow the 2016 election and Democrats were screaming the high end that the election was stolen and trying to make an analogy and compare that to 2020 is like apples and oranges. I don't like it when Republicans do that. Hillary Clinton conceded. She called Donald Trump an illegitimate president. She's never said, though. And by the way, I think Donald Trump's illegitimate, too, because of everything he's said and done in his life. But that has nothing to do with the election results. Hillary has never said that the Republicans cheated and Donald Trump was an illegitimate president. Donald Trump to this day says that Joe Biden's illegitimate and that the Democrats cheated. And I just wish more people would agree on that. My friend, I appreciate your phone call. You have a phenomenal rest of your Monday, okay?
There's one more thing I wanted to say.
Sure.
I just think it's hilarious how Republicans complain about immigrants when yet they're the ones who rioted at the Capitol.
Yeah.
They complain about us? Really?
Yeah.
That amazes me.
Yeah, there's no comparison to, what took place on January 6th. And I'm with you, my friend. I appreciate the phone call. Thank you, sir. 702.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. 702-221-7283. We have one phone line that's open if you want to jump in. Let's go to John. John is next up on Pushing the Limits. Hello, John. John?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right. This bombardment of illegals, not only in America, but every first world nation, it's called the Cloward and Piven tactic. And it was created by two professors in Harvard. I can't remember when, but it's used to destroy nations.
Gotcha.
Same thing happened to Venezuela. Mm-hmm. It's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And as Pedro Biden said, we're going to have an endless stream of immigrants seeking asylum.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not how it works. It's hard enough to get asylum in any country, let alone millions. Right? And now they're letting them become peace officers. Now, mind you, that's an act of high treason to destroy the security of our borders.
Wait, what do you mean they're making them officers? What do you mean? What do you mean?
They're making them peace officers. In Illinois, they passed legislation to make them peace officers.
Okay.
That's another act of treason.
Okay, so Joe Biden's a treasonist? Is that what you're saying?
Oh,
Gotcha.
Him, Christopher Wray,
Gotcha.
Merrick Garland.
Yeah. How was this country founded?
No, not all
John,
of them.
John, how was
Just
this
the ones
country?
who openly committed treason.
Got you. How was this country founded? Help me with my history because I don't recollect. How was this country founded, John? Who founded this country?
It was founded by men who did what needed to be done.
Were they migrants? Were they? Where did they come from? I'm just curious.
Oh, no. Don't be disingenuous.
No. I don't know. Please help me because I need a civics course from you, John. Who founded this country?
This country was already inhabited before the Europeans came over.
Okay,
right?
so migrants came into this country, right? They founded this country. You're saying that those are the same people that are ruining the country. You know who I think is ruining this country? Because we'll disagree on this one, John. I think I'll tell you who I think. I'll tell you who I think is ruining this country. People that are trying to attack our democracy, people who are bigoted people who attack people because they're gay or transgender or because of the color of their skin, people who look up to and are part of a cult of a man who is facing 91 felony counts, who is a liable rapist, who think that January 6th was a tourist visit. Now, I agree with you, John, in some cases. I do agree that we have a crisis at the border. I've been saying that for years, way before Joe Biden. But the country is not falling down the toilet and ruined because the overwhelming majority of those people are not bad people. And a lot of people on the right, I don't know if you characterize them as this, but a lot of people on the right like to characterize those who are not documented in this country as rapists and people that are going to kidnap your children, when the facts say otherwise. Per capita, you have a much better chance of being the victim of a crime from somebody who is a legal citizen than from somebody who is illegal in this country. And another thing, every Republican wants to talk about the border, but I never hear Republicans talk about those who overstay their visas. John, are you aware that the overwhelming majority of people in this country that are undocumented or illegal, or any word you want to use, are those that overstay their visas? Can you please tell me how building a wall would fix that problem?
Okay, first, I'm going to respond to everything you just said. But first, Mr. Reed, which is a longtime client of Epstein's Island, funded Eugene Carroll's defense. Right.
Okay, I'm not going to go with conspiracy theories. And if you're going to say, okay, gotcha. So you're saying that, gotcha. Okay, so let's go with that. Let's go with that for a moment. So let's just assume for a moment that the jury was wrong and you don't believe in the justice system when it fits your narrative. Let's go with that. Okay, hold on. Let's go one at a time, and then you can respond to the next one.
Okay, gotcha. Because of this propaganda of the mainstream media.
Sir, let's just assume for a moment. And by the way, I would disagree with you, but for argument's sake, let's just assume that Eugene Carroll was lying. Let's just assume that for a moment. Donald Trump's own ex-wife in court documents said that he raped her. 25 other women accused him of sexual assault or rape. He hasn't been faithful to one woman his entire life. He buried his ex-wife on the first hole of his golf course so he could save money on taxes. You're going to believe that guy over Eugene Carroll?
Now, when did all these allegations come up? When he ran for president, correct?
First of all, you have no idea what you're talking about. I just said Donald Trump's ex-wife in court.
That's a simple question.
Okay, and I'm giving you a simple answer.
That's what I'm asking you.
And I'm giving you a simple answer. Donald Trump's ex-wife in court documents years before he announced he's going to be running for president. And you know what Donald Trump did? Instead of just going on the record in a courtroom and denying it, he didn't deny it. He paid her off to put the case away. Many of these other women that have accused Donald Trump of sexual assault or rape happened way before the Stormy Daniels situation. So no, it didn't just happen after Donald Trump announced he was running for president. In fact, the only person that did happen to was Joe Biden, a woman that changed her story 4 different times. Donald Trump's never been Joe Biden's never been indicted.
Isn't that what Eugene Carroll did? Didn't her story change multiple times?
Eugene Carroll was proven in a court of law. This is what I'm trying to explain to you. Whether you disagree with it or not is irrelevant. A jury of Donald Trump's peers believed and said that Donald Trump is liable for raping a woman. Okay? Now, you can disagree with it, and you can talk about Epstein Island until the cows come home, unless you can show me.
Which the FBI hasn't arrested not one client so far, and it's been over 5 years, by the way.
What does that have to do with Donald Trump?
Mind you, right?
What does that have to do with Donald Trump?
So
why are you bringing up?
Are actively protecting child rapists.
By the way, and that's not true. By the way, I noticed.
That's a fact, that is a fact.
Right, they're protecting rapists. Okay, I appreciate the call, John. I appreciate the call, John. But when you're going to say that the FBI is protecting rapists, that's when the conversation ends, and you just lost the argument, even though you lost it 5 seconds into the phone call. I appreciate the call. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Susan. Susan is next up on Pushing the Limits. Hi, Susan.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. What's on your mind, Susan?
Well, I got a couple of things. First off, when your guest said that we need to have in-person free and fair elections with ID, I just have to dispute that because in Washington State we've been using mail-in ballots since 2011.
Right, correct.
And there hasn't been a problem. You have to have a driver's license
Yeah.
to register to vote.
Susan, you're 100% right. And, this is what I say to Republicans all the time. Where was all this talk after Donald Trump won in 2016? There was no talk because their guy won. Their guy won. If their guy loses and a Democrat wins, it must have been cheating. But if a Republican wins, it was free and fair elected. I mean, it's ridiculous. There's no credibility on the right. None. Zero.
No.
It's sad.
Also, the other thing I wanted to ask was, where do the numbers come from in the border crossing illegals? Because if they're illegals, aren't they coming across secretly?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the numbers could be skewed, but I will say this, Susan, to be fair, there's a lot of people crossing the border illegally right now, and it's got to stop.
Yeah, I understand that,
Yeah.
but how do they know the numbers if they're coming across illegally?
I don't have the answer.
I mean, they're not coming through a border crossing and saying, "Hi, I'm illegal."
I don't have the answer to that question, Susan. I'm not going to lie to you. I wish I did. But I will tell you this. We have a crisis at the border. Republicans have the opportunity to help pass a bill that would help. Is it the end-all end? Is it going to fix everything? No. I say the same thing with Republicans when it comes to gun control. Some certain laws should be passed. Would it be the end of gun violence? No, but it would help. They shoot everything down, for lack of a better term. Same thing with this border crisis situation. We have a bill that is put on the table right now that, by the way, a MAGA Republican, James Langford, who Donald Trump called and praised and said he was very tough on the border. This guy put this bill together with Democrats, and now all of a sudden they're voting against it. Now, could it be maybe because they're just listening to Donald Trump and they don't want Joe Biden to look good? I mean, that's where I disagree with my first guest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's true. I think that it is a distraction.
Unbelievably a distraction. And if it's Make America First, then they would pass this bill. Susan, it is good to hear from you, and I appreciate your call, Susan. Thank you so much, okay?
You bet. Have a good day.
You too. We're going to take a couple more quick calls, and then we're going to take a break because we got the resident liberal, Chris Wynn's going to be joining us, and I know he's going to have some strong opinions on this and others. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Who are we going to next? Let's go to Roy. Roy, what's going on?
Hey, good afternoon, Brian. How you doing?
Good.
Okay, I'm not 100% sure of what's in this bill, and of course, it's not the cure-all. But Donald Trump and Mike Johnson, they were not going to pass this before they even knew what was in the bill.
Agree.
So what's in the bill is not even relevant.
Yes,
they made up their minds that it's going to be. Look, I remember when Obama was president. If he said the sky was blue, the Republicans said it wasn't.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even matter what they say.
Yeah.
As far as the election goes, Hillary, even though she lost, two things. One, she did win the popular vote, which Trump never talks about. And Biden happened to win the popular vote by over 7 million votes. And number two, the whole fiasco with the email right before the election probably influenced the outcome of that election to some degree. I don't know if it would have changed it, but definitely had an impact.
Here's what is, to me, Roy, here's what's really important when we talk about this. While you might be correct that it might have had some influence, I don't believe it had enough influence to change the outcome of the 2016 election. And I think it's important, if we're going to call out Donald Trump, which we all should, Republican or Democrat, he did not win the 2020 election. We also need to admit that Donald Trump won, for the most part, a free and fair election in 2016. And if we can't do that, then we're going to be hypocrites. And Roy,
I can do it, but it also did have an impact. How much?
I hear you.
I don't think anybody knows the answer to that.
It's hard. It's hard to answer. It's hard.
If you got rid of this antiquated electoral college and just went by popular vote, that would end all the problems and save the country billions and billions of dollars.
Agree, but guess what? It's never going to happen because
I know.
Republicans will never win another presidential election in our lifetime if there is no electoral college and it's popular vote. Roy, I appreciate you, my friend. It's good to hear from you. Got to move on. Thank you, Roy. Joining us in studio is the official, I guess you could say, House Liberal.
Progressive Democrat, lefty.
House
yes.
lefty. He's
there
the
it is.
He's the house
Bang.
lefty of pushing the limits.
The perfect description, my friend.
The house lefty. Chris, good to see you.
Good to see you, Brian.
Thanks
it's good
for
to be
being
here on a Monday as usual. Loaded up week, as you can imagine, first week in February.
Yep.
So that means we're one step closer to the election of 2024. But of course, here in Vegas, it's Super Bowl week. All the festivities going down. Kicks off early afternoon today with the big media day down at Allegiant Stadium. It's going to be loaded all week long. Here, look, it's crazy in Vegas every week, but this week's going to be kind of over the top. You got Vegas Golden Knights hockey, everything going on. So it's But,
so before we get to all that stuff,
here we go.
And I do want to talk about that stuff with you later on in the program. Right. And before we take more phone calls, and by the way, the number to call 702-221-7283. So I don't know if you heard my interview with Julio Rosas.
Absolutely, I did, yes.
Your thoughts?
Unfortunately.
Your thoughts?
My thoughts are I can't get that 30 minutes back of my life, first, number one. I'll make just one comment about this because I don't think it deserves any more time, to be quite honest with you. The idea that your guest, Julio, is a journalist is about as absurd as Chris Wynn being a Chippendale dancer, okay? It's about as absurd as a busker on the Las Vegas Strip sidewalk saying that they have a residency on the Las Vegas Strip as a strip entertainer, okay? Let me be very clear, Brian Shapiro, okay? When you have a guest like Julio on and he says he's a journalist, journalists actually accept basic facts and reality, okay? Your guest did not do that on a number of occasions. You gave him opportunity after opportunity to be able to present himself as someone who, and by the way, journalists also don't take, just flat out take sides to take sides, all right? And that's not what, quote unquote, journalists do. Now look, journalists have their personal opinions, we get it, right? Doesn't matter if you work for an outlet like Fox News or MSNBC or CNN, we get they're going to have their personal opinions. But someone who's coming on your show touting themselves as a journalist, and then they flat out embarrass themselves with their ignorance and not accepting basic facts of reality, which are what you said about the 2016 election. Yes, Donald Trump was a fair and elected president in 2016. And then you also pointed out that Joe Biden was a fair and free elected president in 2020.
Sure. And
he wanted to dance around that and act like it was not a reality, okay? Destroyed all of his credibility. I'm sorry. I know I'm kind of going off here. I'm coming in here on a 10, which is what I usually do sometimes on a Monday. But it's very disheartening is the word I'll use. I use it a lot. To hear somebody like Julio act like he's a journalist, which, by the way, I've never heard of him. I don't know. I've never heard the outlet that he works for, and he's a clown, okay? He's not a journalist. But hey,
well, you're entitled.
What are you going to do?
Well, you're entitled.
It's not entitled to an opinion. What I'm saying is actually factually accurate.
I understand.
He's not a journalist.
But
okay?
You're entitled to
journalists actually acknowledge
hold on.
that people, that facts and reality are a thing.
I got your opinion, but the reality of the situation is Julio appears on Fox News all the time. Doesn't mean
what?
that
Who cares?
Okay, let me finish.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that would make him more or less credible, but there are he has a large following that actually listens to him, and I like to have people like that on the show, even though I completely disagree with a lot of what Julio says. What do you say we take the calls? And if you're just joining us, Chris Wynn in studio, we're talking about this immigration bill that will not be passed because of Republicans, and this is the thing that I find interesting. Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma, MAGA Republican, staunch conservative. Donald Trump, over the years, has praised him for being very tough on the border. Well, guess what? James Lankford helped put this bill together and worked with Democrats. Yeah. And now, all of a sudden, the MAGA Republicans are poo-pooing this guy. Let's take some phone calls on this. And 702-221-7283 is the number to call. You know what? Why don't we go to Julian first? Julian, thanks for calling in to Pushing the Limits. Hi, Julian.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. A thing that I think you might find amusing is every time you would say, with all due respect, it kind of reminded me of from Boston Legal when there's a character, he went down to the Supreme Court in Texas, and every time he wanted to tell him to F off, like he was told, to say to the court, with all due respect.
Well, by the way, I thought you were going to say The Sopranos. I'm a big Sopranos fan. But here's why I say that, right? When somebody takes the time, unless they're disrespectful to me, and Julio was not. He was
Like
actually
your guest on Friday.
Right. That's different. But Julio has always been respectful of mine, and he says nice things about me, which I appreciate. If somebody is going to say something that I deem completely moronic or ridiculous, but if they're treating me with respect and they take the time to come on this show, that's the way I phrase it. But if somebody's going to disrespect me like somebody did on Friday, then it's all holds barred, ladies and gentlemen. If you disrespect me, you're going down.
Yeah, or no holds barred.
Yeah,
but to the caller's point, and the caller might agree with me on this. So Brian, you also do this thing too, where you said it multiple times on the interview. I know you're a smart guy, Julio. Okay, first of all, he has exhibited numerous times why he is not a smart guy. Okay, so there's no real need to vaunt him with that kind of compliment when there are I'll point out, and the caller you probably agree with me on this. He absolutely exhibited a number of situations where he's a moron.
Right. Let me respond to that.
And not very bright.
Let me respond to that, and then we'll let the caller.
Well, you can respond, yeah.
So here's what I would start. There is a fine line and a difference between saying something that is blatantly factually inaccurate and bias, and saying something because you're dumb. There are a lot of people in Washington, D.C., some that are not very intelligent, some that actually are intelligent.
Yes.
Example. I don't think Vivek Ramaswamy is a dumb guy. Like, I think he has a fairly high IQ.
Yeah.
But I think we also could agree that a lot of the things that Vivek Ramaswamy says are blatantly false, and they're conspiracy theories and sometimes lies.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't characterize Vivek Ramaswamy as dumb. I would say Vivek says things that are moronic and idiotic and in some cases even harmful. So I think we can make a distinction between somebody that is biased and willfully says something factually inaccurate and somebody that happens to be ignorant. I look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's ignorant. But I don't think Vivek Ramaswamy's ignorant.
No, but Brian, you just said, I'm talking about Julio, though. You just said literally 3 minutes ago that what he said was, I believe, was quote unquote,
moronic
it was moronic
statement.
and
Yes.
absurd. You actually said to his face that it was absurd.
Sure.
Which it was. Yeah,
Sure.
he made a lot of comments that were not factually accurate. He said a lot of things that were just blatantly false.
Sure.
Blatantly false and utterly biased, but bias, I mean, who cares about bias?
Yeah.
We know people are biased. So that's my point. So 5 seconds ago you said that you just absolutely said that he said things that were moronic.
You can say
and absurd.
something moronic,
That's,
like Trump won.
That's the distinction.
There are
right
a lot
there.
of intelligent people that know that Donald Trump lost at the 2020 election, but they intentionally lie. So there is a distinction and a difference. Let me go back to the caller.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir. What else did you want to add for us? Sorry, I cut you off.
No. I mean, so one, I think that if you ever have him on or somebody like that, again, in terms of like the question that might be interesting, is instead of asking, is Joe Biden a free and fairly elected president, is just shorten it to, was the election free and fair? Because then that takes out the out that Julio was consistently taking of Joe Biden as the president.
Yeah, I think I got the same point. I understand what you're saying, but I think I got the same point across, which is he is not willing to admit the obvious that the earth is round and Joe Biden won. And it's hard to take somebody seriously when they're not willing to admit that. It's either he actually believes what he's saying, and I don't believe that. I think he knows that Trump won, and he's just doing what Ted Cruz does and what Lindsey Graham does and what so many of the MAGA Republicans do. I appreciate the call, my friend. I got to get to some other callers with all due respect.
Take it easy. I appreciate you bringing me on.
With all due respect, it was a pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, brother.
702-221-7283. Do you want a MAGA caller?
Yes. Hey, we can take them all.
Let's get Chris fired up.
It's a Monday. I'm already fired up.
Let's get
so
the
it's game on.
Let's get the Occupy Democrats people fired up.
I had to listen to your quote-unquote journalist for like a half hour, just mumble and
Chris Wynn, quote-unquote
and
Chippendale.
babble about nonsense left and right. So,
Chris Wynn, Chippendale. All right, let's get.
Yeah.
All right, I actually have people from the Occupy Democrats network that don't want me to take some of these calls, but I'm going to take them anyway because I want to hear from the other side, no matter who they are. So
I understand why they wouldn't want you to take the phone calls,
well,
because you can just utterly embarrass them or destroy them.
It's not my intention to do so unless they say something that sets them up. Speaking of which.
Which they do constantly.
702-221-7283. Chris, I'm going to let you handle this phone call. Okay? I'm going to take a break from this call. Let's go to Julie.
Here we go.
Julie is next up. Now, give her time.
Wait,
Julie.
time out. So I hosted your show for you, by the way, on last week, and so I have had Julie on the air.
So
She's been on the air with me.
I want to be here and hear it. Okay,
So
Julie, go right ahead.
Yeah.
Hi, Chris.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm doing okay. It's a rainy Monday in Vegas. Not textbook Norman Rockefeller weather here in Vegas, but hey, we're dealing with it. What do you got?
I'm
What do you got
glad
for
that
us?
you're there. Okay, Chris. Thank you. Thank you for handling my call. I want you to watch the interaction between James O'Keefe and the top White House cyber official, Charlie Collier, please. And go and watch it.
Who are you
You
talking
can
about again?
find out
Who exactly are you talking about?
Is the top White House cyber official, Charlie Collier. Write it down, the name and the interaction between him and James O'Keefe, you know, the guy that is always on the cover. And you find out a very interesting,
The what?
information.
What's he always on?
About the top White House cyber official, Charlie Collier.
So he's a
Charlie
okay. So
Collier.
10
a
seconds. and I'm gonna
cyber
shut up.
official. A cyber official.
Yeah, 10
right?
seconds, and I'm going to shut up. 10 seconds,
Okay,
and then
no,
I'm
go
going to
ahead,
stay out
go
of this.
ahead, yeah,
Okay, Chris.
yeah.
I want you to look up two names. I want you to look up Evan Stone and Ron Jeremy, and then call in tomorrow. I'll do that if you do it, Julie. Okay?
No, I'm asking Chris, not
So am
you,
I.
Brian.
So am I. You're asking us to do research. I'm going to do
No,
it.
I was talking to Chris, please.
Okay, well, it's my
Okay, well,
show.
okay. So
Because
let's
he's a
circle this around
very
here. Okay, so
nice
you want to
individual.
know
He
about
allows
an
me to
interaction?
speak.
You want my opinion, I guess, about an interaction between
Just
the top
your
cyber official
opinion.
in the Biden administration and then
no,
somebody
no,
else.
No,
Who was the other
Brian
person?
opinion. I want your Chris. I want to interact and engage with you. No, with Brian anymore.
Well, it's
Brian
Brian
never
Shapiro's
allowed
show.
me.
We're on the.
Guess what? Hey, Julie. Hey, Julie, guess what? Have
Julie,
a nice day.
Yeah,
Have a nice day.
yeah. Look, Julie, little advice for you from a radio standpoint. Okay, Brian Shapiro. This is his actual show. I just come in and I co-host with him for an hour to chop it up a little bit on a Monday. So we're not going to sit here and ice out B-Shap on his own show. Okay, and then you got to come a little bit stronger when it comes to the structure of your question and your idea, right? So be more straightforward, have it ready to roll so that I can actually interpret what you're saying, and then I can have a reaction, right? Shap, am I off base on this
No.
little mini analysis
By
right
the way,
here?
I was being serious. I want her to look up Ron Jeremy and Evan
She should,
Stone. Yeah. Julie, guess what? You don't get to choose who you talk to.
Exactly.
Okay. 702-22. Good grief. 702. She sounds like somebody that was on that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. rally I went to yesterday. 702. It was crazy, Chris. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Fernando. Fernando is next on Pushing the Limits. What's up, Fernando?
Fernando, how are you?
I'm good, guys. Hey, yeah, I need a translator when Julie comes on because I have no idea what she is talking about.
We're right there with you, Fernando. Not gonna lie.
Hey, on the election, guys, people seem to forget in 2020 there was 28 Republican secretaries of states, 22 Democrats. Okay, and all of them certified the election as valid. So all these Republicans still crying about the 2020 election, and they forget about that. That it was certified by all 50 secretaries of state. And if you guys get a chance, watch on 60 Minutes episode last night on the border. It's interesting. Hey, have a great day, guys. Stay cool.
See that. Fernando, I did see that. And listen, obviously the Julios of the world, and people are going to disagree with me when it comes to immigration, this bill. The bottom line is you had some MAGA Republicans that worked on this bill. It's not perfect. Democrats aren't 100% pleased with it. Republicans aren't. But it is a step in the right direction. Yeah. It's not perfect. I also find it interesting that so many of these people on the right claim to be so pro-Israel. In the bill, it allocated a lot of funds to help the Israeli government. Yeah. They're voting against that. And you have all these things in the bill. Everything's not perfect, but it would certainly help us. And Republicans won't even let it hit their desk. They're saying it's a ploy by the Democrats. No, it's not. This isn't so Joe Biden can score political points like some of the MAGA Republicans might lead you to believe. This is about securing our border. And the Republicans want to bitch and complain, bitch and complain, bitch and complain. When you have something on the table that's not perfect, but it will help the problem, which is the border crisis, they vote against it. Why? If Donald Trump called Mike Johnson today, and you can tell me if you disagree with me on this, if Mike Johnson got a call from Donald Trump right now that said, Mike, I think we should support this bill. I changed my mind. What do you think would happen? The Republicans would pass the bill because they do everything that Donald Trump wants them to do.
Well, here's a couple key points, though, right, Brian? Well, I agree with you on that, but here's a couple key points, Brian, about this bill. It was a bipartisan effort by both Republicans and Democrats as far as getting this bill together and even getting it into fruition, essentially, right? The only reason, folks, the only reason that it's not going to become a reality is because Donald Trump, the front runner for the GOP in the 2024 election, wants to harpoon it. Why? Because he doesn't want Joe Biden to get a victory. He does not want him to have something positive to run on, right, when it comes to the 2024 election. That's the reason why Johnson is between a rock and a hard place, because there's Republicans that want this to go through, but unfortunately, their dear leader, Donald Trump, is not on board with it, and so that's how it's going to work out. To Fernando's point that he made regarding the elections, right? Brian, you addressed this in your last conversation with your guest, okay? And you brought it up correctly, right? It's amazing to me how when it's an election in which, I'll go a step further. I would just say an election where Donald Trump won in 2016. I'll say in 2020, when Republicans win elections, it's all good, right? When Republicans win on a state level or on a federal level or on a city level, wherever, there's no such thing as nefarious activity. There's no such thing as voter fraud that actually affects the election. But when Democrats win, that's when it becomes an issue. And you talked about it with Julio as far as your guest, and again he ended up going moot on the subject because it doesn't fit his ideology or whatever. And unfortunately, that's a situation where you have Republicans that want to play both sides. Oh yeah, it's all on the up and up. When Republicans are victorious, right? When Donald Trump wins in 2016, and when Republicans won in 2020, whether it was congressional seats or in the Senate, but when it comes to Democrats, there's got to be something going on. You get people like your guest Julio will say, yeah, there were still some things that were fishy that were going on in 2020. Get the you-know-what out of here with that crap.
702-221-7283. If you would like to be a part of the show, 702-221-SAVE, even though I cannot save all of you. Let's go to Gary. Gary is next on Pushing the Limits. What's up, Gary?
This reminds me of that song by Paul Simon, Julio in the Schoolyard. I
That was
agree
a good
with
song.
Chris
I like that
Kenny.
song, Gary, back in the 1980s. Top notch right there.
Well, once in a while, we have to agree about something. I don't agree with you too much with the politics, and if
Wait,
I
are
knew
you
more
talking
about
to me
sports,
or Chris?
Are you talking to both of us?
I'm talking to both of you
Okay,
guys.
Gary. Okay,
But
Gary. Let me
I'm
dissect
addressing
you now.
Chris.
What don't you agree?
Hold on,
Yeah.
Gary. That was my question, Gary. What is the number one thing that you disagree with us or me or Chris? What's the biggest issue you have with what I do? A political opinion that I have, and let's talk about it.
For some reason, that's a difficult question.
What are you
Wait a
all I
minute,
want
time
to
out.
say,
You just said that you don't basically, in general, when it comes to my politics or Brian's politics, but you can't come up with maybe a couple examples, Gary, of
one.
Yeah, or just give us one that you think that
all right.
sticks. Give us one, Gary, that sticks.
I'll give
in
you
your
one.
craw.
I'll give you one.
Yeah.
There's this whole list of what you can say and what you can't, discriminating against gays, religious people, people with disabilities. But in that list is nothing about your political allegiance or your political, aisle. If it was a law, you guys would be in jail right now.
Okay, so let me respond to
you
that.
hate Trump.
First of all,
I can't understand why you hate.
Hold on. We're talking.
Why can't you be more tolerant?
Gary, we're talking about discrimination. For example, when I go after the right, they don't want gay people to marry one another. They go after drag queens and transgenders. I'm not taking any right away from somebody that I disagree with. Now, I might call somebody a jackass if they think Donald Trump won the 2020 election, but I am not going to take their free speech away, and I am not going to put anything on the books legislation-wise that would take their rights away. Do you not understand the distinction between me going after somebody on the
I
evangelical far
understand
right
better than you think.
and
And
disagreeing
I know
with
that
somebody?
you are against biological men participating in women's sports, and that biological men don't get pregnant, at least not yet in this day
I've
and age.
never
I understand you're an
said that
independent.
biological men should be competing with women.
Biological men
that.
can't get pregnant. They can't.
Yeah,
It's an
I've
impossibility.
I've never said
Not
that.
yet,
Okay, so
anyway.
you failed on that one, Gary, with all due respect. I'll say that again. So give me another one. What's something that you disagree with me or Chris on wholeheartedly? We're wrong. Da, da,
I don't know.
da,
My
da,
mind is
da,
frozen
da,
right
da. Hi,
now.
I'm
I wanted
Alex
to say
Trebek.
something about Mike Johnson. What a total goof up he was on Meet the Press.
Okay, but that's not.
Well, we could probably agree
Yeah,
on that
yeah.
though. All three of us might be able to agree
So
on
Gary,
that.
maybe,
Yeah.
So Gary, maybe we've figured out that maybe you don't disagree with us as much
Yeah.
as you think you do.
So, Gary, let me make a general comment, Gary, about your comments, because you brought up discrimination, right? And all different levels, right? Let me go Bill Murray on you here from Ghostbusters, okay? Discrimination, okay, that's bad. All right? It doesn't matter what context you're talking about. It doesn't matter what issue you're talking about, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's minorities, whether it's, whether it's people's political views. If you're going to discriminate because they're a Trump supporter or they're a Biden supporter, that's wrong, okay? That's bad. All right? So I don't know how more clear I can be when it comes to that issue. I don't know.
Well, when people call me a liar, Chris, and then I say, "Why don't you call in?" and they say, "Brian, you're a liar. You're this." I say, "Okay, no
But
problem."
they never point out
Give
one
me,
thing where you're lying about
Give me
it.
one thing
Yeah.
I said that's a lie.
They can't do it.
Yeah, let's go back to the calls. That was that phone call. Thank you, Gary. 702-221-7283.
But Gary was relatively sober, I think, in that phone call. So
702-221-7283. Let's go to Dave. Dave is next up on Pushing the Limits. What's up, Dave?
Hey, I just want to talk to you for a minute about a few things. People are saying that Biden has dementia. That's pretty crazy if you listen to his speeches. He's very intelligent. He's been in politics for a long time, and he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, Dave, let me
Another
respond
thing
to
is
that.
we have mail-in voting in Oregon. We've always had it for a long time.
So, Dave,
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
Dave, I'm glad you
We've
brought that
never
up.
had any problems.
Dave, the people
Pardon?
that say that Joe Biden has dementia are the people that have absolutely zero medical credentials. For example, if I said, and I'm just putting this out there as a joke, and by the way, there's probably more evidence that Donald Trump has a small member than Joe Biden has dementia, because we've actually heard from women that say he does
First-hand
have a small
accounts.
member. Right.
Yes.
So maybe that's a bad analogy. But
I'm
if I
sure.
said, for example, that, I don't know, Donald Trump is a diabetic. I don't know. I don't have Donald Trump's medical records in front of me. I don't know his personal doctor. Now, is Joe Biden as crisp as he was 10 years ago? Of course not. He's 80 years old. But these people that say Joe Biden has dementia, here's what I think you should say to them. Here's what I say. In the last 2 months, Donald Trump has confused Nancy Pelosi with Nikki Haley. He said that you need ID to buy bread. He said Jeb Bush got us into the war in Iraq, and he said he defeated Barack Obama in the 2016 elections. I'm not making that up because Donald Trump has said that in speeches.
I know, I heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in bad shape for sure.
Yeah. This is the guy
really
that
is.
now I wouldn't say Donald Trump has dementia. I would say Donald Trump is unfit for office. That's what I would say.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, he's unfit
We're in
for
big
office.
trouble if there's no way he can get back in the White House. There's absolutely no way. And I don't understand why people, they just sit there and listen to him. They don't fact check anything. They believe everything he says. Biden's got boxes hidden in Chinatown. I mean, what the hell? What's that all about? You know,
It's called
and
to the
people just
caller.
love
It's called the MAGA crowd. That's what it is. It's MAGA.
It's
Yes, they
sickening.
believe everything that he
And
says.
Marjorie Taylor Greene makes me sick. I don't know why anybody would put her in there. She's nuts.
Well,
She's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I mean, we got to have extremists out in Washington. We need reasonable people. And you know what? I'm going to say this, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say this on the air right now. The man who helped put this bill together, I'm not a big fan of his. I'm talking about the immigration bill. James Lankford.
Right.
He's a MAGA supporter, James Lankford, out of Oklahoma. Big conservative Republican. But I'm going to give James Lankford some credit. He helped put this bill together. He worked with Democrats. He got a bill that's not perfect for both sides, but I give him credit. He did what a lot of these Republicans are unwilling to do. Work with Democrats for the better sake of the country. And I think Lankford came from the right place. He put something together. And a man who has been praised by Donald Trump as being a GOP who is very tough on the border. Those aren't my comments. Those are Donald Trump's comments. They're now all going after him. What does that say about the Republican Party?
Exactly.
Thank you, Dave, for the call.
Hey, I got one more thing to
Sure.
say. Something about immigrants.
Sure.
If we wouldn't let immigrants into this country, do you know how much fruit and vegetables would go rotten? Because there's nobody in this country, Americans, that'll pick that stuff like the Mexicans can pick that.
But you're right. I agree with you. But if you listen to a lot of these MAGA Republicans, they'll lead you to believe that all these people that are coming into this country that are undocumented, they're all rapists and they're going to rape your kids and kidnap
Oh
you.
yeah.
If you
And they're
listen to the
from
rhetoric.
mental
Now,
institutions.
is there a small
mental
percentage of
institutions.
bad people coming into this country? Sure. Are there too many illegal drugs coming into this country? Sure. I wish that wasn't the case, and let's have that conversation. But the idea and the fact that, if you listen to these MAGAs out there, they're rapists, they're bad people, and I suppose some of them are good people. It's factually inaccurate. It's wrong, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of that rhetoric. It's
One
wrong.
thing. Check the Midas touch. They just brought out a list of drugs that were given in the White House during the Trump administration. They were using fentanyl and morphine,
right?
Giving it to people that shouldn't even have had it. But anyway,
you're right.
That's beside the point.
Dave, good phone call. Appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah, you guys have a good day.
You too. All right. So here's what we're going to do before we take a break. If you want to watch the rest of this show, you're going to have to go to my YouTube page and subscribe. It's at PTL Radio Show. At PTL Radio Show. I'm also on TikTok and Twitch and all the other stuff. At PTL Radio Show. And if you subscribe to the Occupy Democrats Network, it's a cup of coffee, $5 a month. You're going to get personal interaction with me. That's right, Mr. Shapiro. And it's
bonus.
That's right, bonus interaction on Occupy if you click that subscribe button. Also, please subscribe to my YouTube page if you like what I do. I'm also going to give out my website. I'm really bad at giving out all my information, and I always forget. I didn't forget today. My personal website is ptlradio.com. That's ptlradio.com, where you can email us. Any constructive criticism is always allowed. So please do that. And I appreciate everybody watching. We're going to continue the show. We're going to end the Occupy Democrats feed for now. But when we come back, here's an interesting story that I want to pick Chris's brain on. He's now a former NBA player. His name's Tony Snell. Played in the NBA for 9 years. He's got two kids with autism. He needed a 10-day contract to get medical benefits for the rest of his life for his family. He didn't get that contract, and why I don't think he deserved it. I'm going to ask Chris his opinion on it. We're going to talk a little Super Bowl when we come back. Tomorrow, by the way, is primary day in Nevada, so obviously from a political standpoint, we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. But we'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. He's Chris Wynn. I'm Brian Shapiro, and you're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey, everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New